Welcome to Video Pods. Are you ready? Let's buckle up and dive in.
Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be focusing on something I know a lot of you are really interested in, which is destination management. And more specifically, how that relates to niche tourism.
It's a big topic, yeah.
We've got some great academic materials and tourism resources to guide us. Really excited to pick your brain about it all. We'll be looking at what makes niche tourism tick. Like, why is it so popular these days? We'll also look at how the heck do you plan a successful destination, from gathering all the data to keeping things going.
Right.
And like, how can our listeners use these insights for their own travel or even their work?
It is fascinating. The field is changing all the time. Like the rise of niche tourism where, people want those unique experiences, things tailored just for them and their interests.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into the idea of matching a traveler's DNA to a destination.
Yeah.
Which I think is so cool, like moving away from those generic tours and packages.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got everything these days. You've got volunteer tourism in remote communities to film tourism and people flocking to those iconic movie locations. I mean, you name it, there's a niche for it.
Absolutely. And each type of niche tourism brings, its own set of considerations for those destination management organizations. The DMOs.
DMOs, right? We're kind of like the architects of a place's whole tourism strategy.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, just think about film tourism. I was reading about the impact of those Joker stairs, in the Bronx.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's this huge attraction now.
Right.
But it's also, right in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
Right.
So how are these DMOs supposed to balance, like, all the visitors with the needs of the people who actually live there?
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. A good destination management plan, or DMP.
DMP, right.
Should anticipate that. Like, it should incorporate strategies to manage all the crowds, address any safety concerns, and really just make sure that the benefits of tourism, actually get spread to the local community.
So it's really not just about bringing in visitors.
No.
It's about making sure the destination itself can, thrive and benefit from all those tourists.
For sure.
This DMP sounds pretty intense, though. Like, what exactly goes into making one?
It's pretty comprehensive. You can think of it as a structured conversation, between everyone involved with a stake in that destination.
Okay, so, who are we talking about here?
Well, you have your private sector, so your hotels, restaurants, tour operators, they bring that business side. Then there are your local authorities, making sure tourism aligns with the goals of the community. And that, infrastructure can handle the influx of people.
And I'm guessing we can't forget about the people who actually live there.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. Civil society, all your community groups, resident associations, all those individuals who care, they provide really important perspectives. Social impact, cultural preservation, environmental sustainability,
Right, so that way tourism benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly.
Okay, so this sounds like quite a collaborative effort. How do you even begin to get everyone on the same page?
Well, the DMO is, they're really critical in this, facilitating this whole collaboration. They bring everyone together, create a space for that open dialogue, and guide the process of developing this shared vision for the future of their destination.
Right, so it's not just tourism officials behind closed doors dictating what happens.
Nope.
Okay, so you got everyone in the room, now what?
Well, next up is gathering all the evidence.
Oh, the research.
Right, so that's conducting thorough research. Product audits, assessing what's currently being offered, visitor surveys to understand what people want, what they need, and really just diving into local issues and the bigger global trends that might affect the destination.
Speaking of those external trends, I was reading about a case study from Vienna, and they looked at the perceptions of not just tourists, but residents too, what they thought about tourism's impact. Pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. That's a 360-degree view of the whole situation.
Exactly. And I feel like that kind of research can help you set a clear direction.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got the dream team. Research is done. Now it's time to chart the course. Where do you even start with setting a direction for an entire destination?
Well, this is where you define the vision. What do you want tourism to look like? In 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, what kind of experience are we trying to create? What are those long-term goals for economic growth, social impact, environmental sustainability, everything?
Yeah, sustainability is a big one.
Yeah.
We've all seen what happens when places, prioritize profits over preservation. It ends up hurting the very things that were attracting people in the first place.
For sure, it's that classic triple bottom line approach, balancing economic prosperity with social equity and environmental integrity.
Right.
And it's a shared vision. Everyone has to be on board.
So it's not just about attracting tourists, it's about creating a destination that residents are proud of.
Yeah.
A place that thrives even as it welcomes the world.
Exactly. Which leads us to the concept of sense of place.
Yeah, sense of place. What exactly does that mean? It sounds a bit, well, abstract.
Yeah, it's about capturing, showcasing what makes a place truly unique. It's more than your typical tourist attractions. You highlight those authentic experiences, those things that really resonate with specific travelers.
Okay, so you're saying it's more than just a pretty picture, like a beach or something.
Right. They want that deeper connection.
A sense of belonging.
Right. They want to understand what makes the place tick, what makes it special.
So it's about like the emotion, the culture, the things that aren't always so obvious.
Yeah, layers beneath the surface.
And I think that's where niche tourism really shines.
Yeah. You can cater to specific interests.
Create those really meaningful experiences. Like, this reminds me of this Veneti region in Georgia. They're using local products, cultural experiences to attract visitors who are looking for something beyond just those, like, stunning mountain views. It's almost like they're saying, come for the scenery, stay for the soul.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And that sense of place, it's attracting those niche tourists who want authenticity.
Yeah, deeper connection with the place.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the vision, the sense of place aspect, but now we need to translate all that into action.
Right. So now the rubber meets the road. We move from thinking about it to actually doing it.
Okay, so what do you mean by doing it?
This is where we figure out the specific actions that are going to bring this whole DMP to life.
Okay, so like getting super detailed, listing out every single step.
Exactly. This could mean improving infrastructure, upgrading transportation or making public spaces better. Maybe it means developing new marketing campaigns, ones that target a specific niche market and showcase those unique sense of place things we were talking about.
I'm guessing you need to have a way to check your progress too. See what's working, what isn't.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's where those SMART goals come in.
Oh yes, SMART goals.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timed.
I've heard of them, but a little refresher couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
So how do you apply those to destination management?
Okay, so let's say one of your goals is to increase how much visitors are spending in the local community, A smart approach to that would be, first you set a specific target, like we want to see a 10% increase in spending over the next year.
Okay.
Then you outline those actions, the steps to reach that target. Like maybe you partner with local businesses to create unique tours or launch a campaign to promote local artisans and craftspeople, things like that.
Right, so you're breaking down those big goals into smaller, manageable steps.
Exactly. And you can actually track your progress, which is huge. And by using those SMART goals throughout the entire DMP, you're essentially creating a roadmap, a way to make sure that everyone is working towards the same vision.
Okay, I'm definitely starting to see how important these DMPs are, like how they can help guide a place towards a better future. A future that benefits both the locals and the visitors. But even with the best plans, there are always challenges, right?
Oh, of course, destination management isn't static. It's constantly changing. You have to be adaptable, flexible, willing to learn as you go.
So even with a solid DMP, unexpected things can pop up.
Yeah, that's where the skill of a DMO really comes in.
Right.
You need to be strategic thinkers, able to solve problems and bring different stakeholders together, and really just find solutions that benefit everyone.
Yeah, it sounds pretty demanding, but rewarding too.
Yeah.
You're shaping the future of a place, creating experiences that enrich the lives of both visitors and residents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a privilege to be a steward, to guide a place's development, honor its heritage, protect its resources, and leave that legacy of sustainability, shared prosperity.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that we've got a good grasp on that, how about we shift gears a bit and dive into the specifics of niche tourism? All those different types of travel experiences out there. What do you think?
Perfect. Let's get into it. We can unpack each sector, see what makes them so unique, and explore some of those challenges they face.
Fantastic. I think we should start with volunteer tourism, which, on the surface sounds amazing. Travelers get to contribute to a good cause while exploring a new place. But I have a feeling there's more to it than that.
You're right. Volunteer tourism can be complex. Sometimes, good intentions can have unintended consequences.
Right, and that's what we're going to unpack. All the complexities, the ethics, and how to create volunteer experiences that truly benefit everyone involved.
Exactly. Welcome back. You've had a little time to digest all that info about those DMPs and that whole sense of place concept.
Definitely a lot to think about.
For sure. So, shall we jump into the world of volunteer tourism? Where people want to make a difference while they travel.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this one. It does seem like a win-win, right? Travelers get to help out with some great causes and experience the place in a whole new way, but something tells me there's a whole other side to this.
You're right. It's definitely not as simple as it might appear. Volunteer tourism, while driven by those good intentions, it can create some unique challenges for those destination managers.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's not just about connecting those volunteers with projects. It's about making sure those projects actually benefit the community,
Right.
that they're sustainable and that they don't end up doing more harm than good, which can definitely happen.
So are you saying it's all about finding that balance between what the volunteer wants and what the community actually needs?
Exactly. One of the biggest challenges is making sure that those projects are actually aligned with the community's needs and priorities, and not just like the volunteers' desires or maybe the agenda of some outside organization.
Right. It can't be imposed from the outside.
Exactly. That's why the involvement of local stakeholders is so important. They need to have a say in choosing those projects, setting goals, evaluating how it's all going.
Right. So empowering them, not just coming in and saying, this is what you need.
Exactly. It's about working together. But even with the best intentions, and even when the community is involved, there are still things to watch out for.
Like what?
Well, one of the most common ones is making sure that the work, the volunteer work, is actually beneficial in the long term.
Yeah.
That it's sustainable. Sometimes, projects are, I guess, short-sighted, like they address the immediate need, but without thinking about what happens later on.
So it's not just a Band-Aid solution.
No, it's about creating real change. And that takes planning. You have to keep checking on things and really focus on building that local capacity. The goal should be, for the community to eventually take over those projects, not to become dependent on the volunteers.
Right. It's not about making them rely on outside help forever.
No, it's about empowerment.
Okay. What about cultural differences? I'm sure
Yeah.
that plays a role too.
Oh, definitely. Volunteer tourism, it often involves those cross-cultural interactions, which can be amazing, but also, a recipe for misunderstandings if you're not careful.
Right. Because you have to bridge those cultural divides.
Yeah. The volunteers need to be respectful of local customs, the traditions.
Which means good preparation before they even arrive, right?
Definitely. Pre-departure training, really clear communication, and a willingness to listen and learn from the community they're working with.
Okay, that makes sense. So cultural sensitivity is key here.
Yeah.
What about the money side of things? I mean, how do we make sure volunteer tourism actually benefits the local economy?
That's another really important piece, and something a lot of people don't think about.
Because the volunteer work itself isn't paid, right?
Right, but there are always costs involved. Accommodation, food, transportation, all that.
So it's about making sure that money stays in the community.
Exactly. It shouldn't be, going to some big organization outside the area.
So working with those locally owned businesses, right?
Yeah, hiring local guides, buying supplies from local vendors.
So that it creates jobs and helps support those local people.
Exactly. When it's done right, volunteer tourism can really help, especially in those rural communities or places that haven't seen much development.
Okay, wow. I had no idea. Volunteer tourism was so complex.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just showing up ready to help. It's about being thoughtful, responsible.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn. So how about we move on to another niche sector that's always fascinated me? Dark tourism.
Ah, yes. Dark tourism. The exploration of those sites, associated with death, disaster, tragedy.
It's definitely a bit controversial, right?
It is. And it's a sector that really requires a lot of careful consideration from those destination managers.
Yeah, I can see why. But I'm also drawn to it. It's not about morbid curiosity, but more like learning from history, paying your respects, understanding that darker side of humanity. But I can also see how it could easily become exploitative if you're not careful.
Exactly. It's a fine line. And the ethics of dark tourism are really, really important. It shouldn't be about, sensationalizing tragedy or making money from people suffering. It should be about creating an experience that's educational, respectful, and actually meaningful for the visitor.
Okay, so how do you walk that line? How do you make sure it's educational and not exploitative?
Well, first and foremost, you have to involve the families of the victims and the survivors, if there are any.
Right.
They need to be part of the decision-making process. Their voices need to be heard, their wishes respected.
Yeah, because it's their stories, right? Their pain, their legacy. You have to handle that with so much care.
Absolutely. And beyond just consulting with those directly affected, you also need to bring in historians, educators, all sorts of experts to make sure that the site is interpreted accurately and thoughtfully.
Right, so it's more than just presenting the facts. It's about context, understanding the significance of the event, encouraging people to really reflect.
Exactly. And even how the site is presented physically matters. The language used, the images, all of it contributes to the visitor experience.
And I'm guessing the physical design of the site plays a big role too, right?
Right, huge. The architecture, the landscaping, the signs, all of it can either enhance or detract from the solemnity of the experience.
Right, so it's about creating a space that allows for that contemplation and reflection while still being respectful.
Right, and you also have to think about the impact all those visitors can have on the community.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. What kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, it can put a strain on resources,
Yeah.
increase traffic. It can even lead to, some residents being displaced if it gets too crazy.
So how do you manage all of that?
Well, responsible dark tourism operators will work closely with the community to make sure any negative effects are minimized and that the residents are really part of the decision-making process.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like dark tourism, when it's done well, can actually be a really powerful tool for education, remembrance, even reconciliation.
Absolutely. It's a sector that requires a high level of ethical awareness. But it can offer some profound insights and even inspire us to create a more just and compassionate world.
I love that. Okay, well, how about we switch gears again, this time to something a little more lighthearted. Film tourism.
Ah, yes, film tourism, where the big screen meets the real world.
It's so popular. Everyone loves movies.
It's definitely been growing. People want to step into those scenes, visit those iconic locations from their favorite movies and TV shows.
I think we all have those moments from movies that have stayed with us, those places we dream of seeing in person. But how do you, as a destination manager, how do you capitalize on that fame without, turning the place into a movie set?
That's the challenge. So many places are struggling with this. It's about striking that balance. You want to appeal to those movie fans, but you also have to protect the place. Its authenticity, its integrity.
Right, so it can't just be about recreating those scenes.
Exactly. It's about offering a more nuanced perspective, providing context, exploring those behind-the-scenes stories, then connecting it all back to the local culture, the history of the place.
Yeah. Like with the Joker stairs, you were saying it wouldn't just be about letting people take selfies.
Right.
It would be about telling the story of that neighborhood, the people who live there. Their struggles, their resilience.
Exactly. Responsible film tourism operators, they often work with local historians, filmmakers, even the residents themselves, to create experiences that are entertaining and also, teach you something.
So you're using the film as a way to explore the destination more deeply, see its complexities, appreciate its unique character.
Precisely. And when it's done well, it can be a powerful tool to promote cultural exchange, economic development, even social change.
It really is amazing how a movie can, spark people's imagination and get them to visit a place they never would have thought of before.
The power of storytelling. And for destination managers, it's about harnessing that, creating those memorable, meaningful experiences that benefit both the traveler and the place.
Okay, now I think it's time to venture into, more controversial territory. Slum tourism.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. Complex, very sensitive. It involves visiting those impoverished areas, often in developing countries. And while it can raise awareness about poverty and inequality, it also brings up a lot of ethical questions. Exploitation, voyeurism, even the potential for harm.
Yeah, I definitely see both sides of it. So how do you approach this responsibly? How can DMOs manage some tourism in a way that's, ethical?
The most important thing is that the community is fully involved every step of the way.
Okay, in what way?
From planning those tours to actually running them. They need to have a say, their concerns have to be addressed, and they need to give their consent. It can't be forced on them.
Right, so empowering them, not just like imposing tourism on them.
Exactly. And it's about making sure that the money, any profits from these tours goes back into the community.
So not profiting from their poverty.
No, not at all. It should be a tool for economic development, working with local businesses, hiring local guides, and supporting community projects.
Okay, it sounds like transparency and accountability are key here.
Absolutely. And it's also important to educate the visitors, They need to understand the complexities of poverty, the challenges the community faces. It's about promoting empathy and understanding, not just, gawking at their situation.
So breaking down stereotypes,
Yeah.
helping people to see the humanity behind the poverty.
Exactly. And that takes planning, sensitive storytelling, and a real commitment to creating authentic and respectful experiences.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be a force for good, if done right.
It definitely can be, but it requires a high level of ethical awareness and a real commitment to working with the community.
Okay, and for our final niche tourism environment, I think we should explore religious tourism.
Yes. Religious tourism. It's been around for centuries, driven by that human desire to connect with something bigger than themselves, to go on pilgrimages, visit those sacred sites.
It's amazing how faith and spirituality can bring people from all over the world to these specific places.
It really is. And for destination managers, this sector presents both unique opportunities and challenges.
I imagine one of the biggest challenges is, balancing the sacredness of these places with the demands of tourism.
You're absolutely right. It's about finding ways to accommodate all those visitors while still preserving the sanctity, the spiritual integrity of the site.
So it needs to be a place where people can still find that sense of peace, that reverence.
Exactly. And that might mean, implementing dress codes, maybe restricting photography, or even limiting how many people can visit at one time.
And I'm guessing you also have to make sure that visitors understand the religious customs and traditions.
Absolutely. It's about showing respect. Approaching the site with understanding, not just seeing it as a tourist attraction.
So fostering a sense of reverence, encouraging people to be mindful.
Exactly. And responsible operators in this sector, they often work with religious leaders, community members, to create experiences that are, informative and also enriching for the visitor's spirit.
It sounds like a real balancing act, requiring a lot of sensitivity, awareness, and respect for those traditions.
It definitely is. But when it's done well, religious tourism can be a powerful thing. It can promote dialogue between different faiths, encourage cultural exchange, and even foster spiritual growth.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground today. So many different types of niche tourism, each with its own unique quirks and challenges.
It's been a whirlwind tour, but I think it highlights just how important those destination managers are. They have to balance the needs of the traveler with the needs of the destination itself to make sure that tourism is a force for good.
Exactly. And as niche tourism keeps growing, their role is only going to become more important.
For sure. Making sure those experiences are sustainable, responsible, and ultimately beneficial for everyone.
Well said. Okay, I think we need a little break. And when we come back, we'll dive into something that's really shaping the future of tourism: data. Welcome back. We've talked about DMPs, those destination management plans. We've delved into sense of place and all those fascinating niche tourism sectors. But now it's time for, I think, one of the most exciting parts: the role of data.
Yeah, data has become such a powerful tool for anyone working in destination management.
It really has.
It's giving us insights, that we could have only dreamed of before. We can understand traveler behavior better, predict trends, and make much more informed decisions.
It's almost like having a crystal ball that can show you the future of tourism.
That's a great way to put it.
But where does all this data come from?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not magic, right?
No, not magic, but it's all around us. Every time someone books a flight, searches for a hotel online, shares a photo on social media, even just uses their phone while they're traveling, they're creating data.
So it's like a massive amount of information just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly. And the smart destination managers, they're using that data to improve the visitor experience, make their marketing more effective, even guide how they develop their infrastructure.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some specifics. How are they using this data to personalize the traveler's experience?
Well, one of the most exciting areas is personalized recommendations. So by analyzing someone's past travels, their preferences, what they do online, we can suggest things that are tailor-made for them. Destinations, attractions, activities, all of it.
So it's like a virtual travel agent, but one that really knows you.
Exactly. And this kind of personalization, it usually leads to more satisfying trips. People spend more, and they're even more likely to come back again.
That's amazing. A win-win for everyone. But what about using data for like those big picture strategies, for the whole destination?
Oh, definitely. Data can tell us so much about like visitor demographics, their travel patterns, how much they're spending, even their sentiment.
Sentiment. What do you mean by that?
Oh, that's basically analyzing online reviews, social media posts, all those kinds of texts to see what people are feeling about a destination.
So you can see the good, the bad, everything.
Yeah, and that kind of feedback is so valuable. You can see what you need to improve, address any concerns, and even spot trends before they become, a big thing.
It's like having your finger on the pulse of what visitors are thinking and feeling.
Exactly. And that's so important these days. Things change so quickly. They're always looking for the next big thing.
I'm totally convinced data is like the key to the future of tourism.
Yeah.
But I imagine there are some ethical concerns to think about, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have to be responsible with all this information. Respect people's privacy, be transparent about how we're using the data, and make sure there's no bias creeping into our analysis.
So no shady tracking or selling data to other companies without people knowing?
No, never. Trust is essential. People need to know how we're collecting their data, what we're doing with it, and how we're keeping it safe.
Right. It's about using this power for good, not to, take advantage of travelers.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that data is just one piece of the puzzle. It can give us all these great insights, but it should never replace human judgment, empathy, and the importance of making those real connections with people.
I love that. This deep dive has been amazing. It really feels like we've uncovered the heart of destination management. From planning to niche tourism to the power of data, and it's all constantly changing, which makes it so exciting.
It really is. And it's full of opportunities for anyone who's passionate about, shaping the future of travel.
What advice would you give to someone who's inspired by all of this?
Yeah.
Who wants to learn more, get involved?
I'd say be curious, be adaptable, and never stop learning. The industry is changing so fast, you got to stay ahead of the curve, embrace new ideas, and don't be afraid to, shake things up a bit.
That's great advice. I think this deep dive has given all of us a lot to think about. The importance of sustainability, the power of storytelling, the ethical considerations of using all that data.
It's been a whirlwind, hasn't it?
It has, but a good one. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of destination management.